Welcome to the Joyfulicity podcast. I'm your host, Laura Wakefield, and I'm pleased today to have Lee Zuniss on as my guest. Lee and I met originally on Instagram, and he is a certified coactive life coach and microdose guide. And I was curious about all the microdosing stuff because it's something I know absolutely nothing about, other than that quite a few prominent celebrities and podcasters and things have begun talking about it. So I'm very curious to learn more about that. Welcome, Lee, to the show.
Laura, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, before we get into the microdosing, I wanted to
Yes.
ask you a little bit about your story and how you decided to get into coaching in the first place. Can you tell us your backstory just a little bit?
Yeah, it's fine. I've been just from people asking me about this and like writing my bio and doing, all the work for my website and stuff. I've been thinking about it. I feel like, so when you ask me that question, I
Yeah.
actually go back. I just turned 50 on April Fool's Day. And so if I go back to when I was a young child, I remember I grew up in New Jersey, and we had a house in a garage, and I remember that one particular moment where I was in the garage, and I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, and looking back, I realized that I was having a panic attack, but just out of no, just I didn't know why, I didn't know what was going on. I remember like holding on to the shelf, and I remember regulating my breath.
Interesting.
I just went there, and
Instinctively, you kind of knew to do that.
I just regulated my breath. I noticed my breath. I followed it, and I regulated. So I started doing, I guess, mindfulness breath techniques from a very early age, not even knowing that I was doing it. And I guess fast forwarding to, I'm just going to give you a little timeline because it all leads up to
Yeah,
basically to
absolutely.
today, where um, fast forward to when I was 13, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And from that moment on, I had to be extremely, I would say, focused and intentional about my blood sugar and checking my blood sugar 8 times a day. And so I had this connection to my body, in particular to my blood sugar levels and also to nutrition and things like that. But so I was practicing mindfulness in that respect from a very early age, and I didn't have a choice to.
Right.
And then so that was just a practice. So I was practicing every day. Like when you practice something every day, I became an expert on at least just noticing that connection,
Hmm.
right? And then we'll jump forward to maybe about 10 years ago. So
Okay.
let's jump like 30 years or something, um, to a moment when I was in a couples therapist office with my ex-wife, and we decided that we were going to go to therapy for a year, once a week, just to see if we can. I was, we were both just like, let's do whatever we can to see
Yeah,
if we can make this work, and
sure.
we did it. And toward the end, there was one session where I was sitting on the couch, my ex-wife was sitting here, therapist was across, and there was a moment where they looked at each other, and then they kind of looked at me, and then they looked at each other again, like this exhausted, like they were exhausted by me
Oh
and my
no.
behavior,
Oh
as far
no.
as like me wanting to be right, and like wanting to be right and win the argument, what I was there to win and be right. And I'm getting chills as I'm saying this.
We've all been in that situation before, I think.
But this is what I had. So a psychedelic experience is a mind altering experience. Okay, it doesn't have to necessarily have psychedelics, actual psychedelic medicine or drugs involved. And
Okay.
so, and so in that moment, I somehow was looking at myself through their eyes, and I saw myself and I saw what they were seeing. And I got, I, I freaked out, and I got really scared. Like, am I crazy? Am I like, what's going on? Like,
What's happening to
how
my
am I not
body? Yeah.
seeing this? Yeah, how am I not seeing this behavior? And so I walked out of there. That was an awakening. That was probably
Yeah.
one of the first awakenings that I've had, where I realized I didn't know necessarily see or know what I was doing all the time, right? And from that moment on, I became fascinated with watching my brain and
Interesting.
watching my nervous system. And so I just dove in, and that was about 10 years ago, where I just became so focused on my brain and watching my brain that that was another practice that was sort of like priming me to be. I knew it was priming me to become a coach, and then throughout the last, I would say, 10 years, I've had a few extremely powerful actual psychedelic medicine experiences. One ayahuasca, an ayahuasca ceremony, another one, another, a bunch of other different psychedelics that I was experimenting with. And so that was that just kind of opened my eyes and shined a light on the power of psychedelics as a medicine and as a therapy. And then after that, it's just sort of like the pandemic happened. My wife and I moved, my current wife moved here from New York to Colorado, a few months before the pandemic hit. And it
Nice time to
just,
move to a
yeah,
brand new place where you know no one. Yeah.
Brooklyn, New York, after for 20 years moving to this tiny mountain town with
Oh
1,000
gosh.
people.
Yeah. Culture
Um,
shock.
it gave me some time
Yeah.
and some room to breathe and to see what was working in my life and what wasn't. And at the time when I moved here, I owned a commercial printing company. It was a letterpress
Okay.
company that was running out of Denver. And every morning I would get up and I would dread having to do what I was doing. So I knew that, like, I didn't even want orders to come in because I knew I had to like take care of them.
Right.
So it was it took a little while for that pattern to continue, where I just said, I am just freaking done. I'm done now. I'm done with this. And then it was a series of events that kind of led me to learning about coactive coaching, the coaching program. I had a friend that signed up for it, and then I was just like, oh, one of my mantras at the time was to follow my curiosity and to trust it.
I love that.
And so I I just used that as my guide. I used curiosity as my guide. I signed up for the program. A year and a half later, I was certified. In that time, I just started my practice. I started promoting my practice. I started getting clients. And within that time as well, I took two courses for coaches, therapists, and doctors of incorporating microdosing into their practice. And
Interesting.
so it all just sort of unfolded through my practice of curiosity. A few years ago, a friend of mine told me, who's a naturopath, out of nowhere, she's like, Lee, you're a healer.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm a business person, I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
What do you mean she's like, no, you're a healer. And I wanted to just, my inner critic wanted to say, like, stop it,
That's not
but
right. Yeah, that's not me.
talk about words of affirmation. I think about that almost on a daily basis, those words. So Rachel Meredith, if you're listening to this, thank you so much. I thanked you a million times already, um, but that I'm bringing that up because of the power of words of affirmation.
Well, and she
So,
probably had no idea when
and
she said that what impact it was going to have. No idea.
absolutely not, absolutely not. So here we are today, and now I'm being interviewed on your podcast um, for being a life coach specializing in microdosing. Yes.
Well, so I'm following my curiosity
Whew.
because
Yes.
so microdosing, there's so many ideas when you hear the word psychedelics,
Yes.
you
Yes.
I mean, if you're not in as knowledgeable as you, a lot of people might think they're thinking drugs or like the hippies
Right.
or whatever myths or preconceived ideas that they have about that. And I've had those thoughts before and ideas about that. And then recently it's becoming much more mainstream. You're even hearing
Mhm.
doctors talk about it and all of this stuff. So I'm putting those things completely
Oh
aside
yeah.
in my mind now. And I'm here to learn from you. So
Yes.
talk to me about psychedelics,
Yeah. Yeah.
microdosing, what they do, how they work, and why they're helpful to people.
Sure. Yeah. Listen. They got a really bad rap in the 50s, and 60s, and they were just stepped on by the government, and now they have reemerged. There's so much over the past 10 years, but especially the past 5 years, there's been so much research being done through many programs, including John Hopkins, and it's becoming so clear that this is possibly the most effective medicine when it comes to depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction. Oh my God, addiction. It's
Really? See, that's so
and
counterintuitive
but
to the myths.
so if I look through the lens of not being so deeply immersed in this world, I could see how that there can be contradictory. But as far as toxicity is concerned, especially psilocybin mushrooms, um, we have there's a list on a website that I use as a resource called the Microdose Institute, and they have a list of different drugs and substances. I think it's like a list of like 30 or 40 different substances, and right at the top are substances like alcohol, heroin, cocaine, and all the way down at the bottom, I think it's like one of the last ones is psilocybin mushrooms.
Hmm.
So it's such a gentle, it's one of the most powerful yet gentle medicines that exist. Basically, what's happening with psychedelics, and I'm just going to focus on psilocybin mushrooms,
Sure.
our time today. There's a certain part of our brain called the default mode network. Okay, it's a conglomeration of approximately 30 different parts of the brain, and each part has its own function. But when those parts are put together, it makes up the default mode network. The
Okay.
default mode network is responsible mostly for thinking about the future, the past, ourselves, and other people. And if it that's fine in itself, but when it leads to rumination and obsessive thinking, that's when we get anxious or turns out or depressed or stressed. So an overactive default mode network. So one of the 30 parts in the default mode network is the amygdala. Most people have heard of the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is responsible for fight or flight, like when there's an emergency. So that kicks in. But when that kicks in, when there's no emergency, yes, anxiety. is rumination, anxiety, obsessive thinking. So what the psilocybin does, it dampens the unnecessary activity in the default mode network.
Okay.
And from my personal experience, and also there's plenty of research backing this up, that once that gets quiet down, that's our that what's beneath that or behind that or wherever we want to call it, that's our authentic self. That's where our peace is. That's where our joy, taking away all of that obsessive thinking, that's where we can sit and be with ourselves, with I'll use air quotes, with ourselves, whatever that may mean, but I feel like that's where the joy is. Yeah. Does that make sense? Is that
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard of the amygdala. All of
okay?
this is beginning to finally be talked about more and more. And I think the
Hmm.
thing that has attracted me to the idea of it, although I've not tried it at this point in time
Hmm.
because of there's some legality issues still with it, and we can talk about that
Yes.
later. But
Yes.
we medicate ourselves all the time with substances to do those very things, but they're not natural substances. And
Right.
this has been so vilified, but it's actually a natural substance found, organically, that our bodies probably know better what to do with than some of the inorganic things that we think of as standard medicine. And that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
that curiosity is coming up in me that, well, why have we made this illegal when XYZ that are just pharmaceuticals are legal and they're doing the same thing?
It really would have control and money back in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. Who had the power?
Not letting, yeah, not letting, things got a little free thinking can be a bit scary for the government, for governments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Politics got
So
in the way.
there you go. There you go.
Well, I
Yeah.
just I know that it's even like you said, like mainstream doctors are starting to talk about this now. So it's getting a
Mhm.
little bit more general public acceptance. But still, so do you still find people who are quite resistant because of all of the sort of messages that have been sent previously?
I, well, yes, I do.
Mhm.
But most of the people that are reaching out to me have done research.
Mhm.
Um, they've done their research and they're interested. They want to get educated. They want to know best practices. So yeah, to answer your question, most of the people are somewhat open and ready.
Gotcha.
But if I'm talking to a group of people that are not, everything that we just talked about still lives in people's minds, um, very much so.
Mhm.
Very much so. This is just the beginning, and I'm hoping that our conversation, yeah, anything that I can do to help people feel. I mean, listen, this is all I can say is what I know, my experiences, my clients' experiences, and and the research that's out there.
Yeah. So you're trained in traditional coaching also.
Oh,
So,
I'm a coach. I'm a coach. First and foremost, I'm a coach. It seems as though I mostly support people as a life coach, but I do have some clients that are reaching out to me recently, helping with their businesses as well. But I'm trained to basically coach anything. The microdosing is a tool. It's a very powerful tool, but it's a tool. And there are other tools out there that can dampen the overactivity of the default mode network, like exercise, meditation. Um, before I get a little nervous for doing talks like this, so I prepped myself by exercising we have a sauna on the property. I took a sauna. I took a cold shower. I took a tiny microdose a few hours ago, like even less than like the average microdose than someone would take, because I know what it does.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to be as present as possible.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well, and I like that you're saying that it's part of sort of a whole toolbox of things that you use as a coach. And it's
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everyone, and people could still work with you for coaching even if they weren't comfortable with that initially.
Absolutely. I'd say about, because microdosing is my specialty, I'd say about 70% of my clients are microdosing and taking advantage of my coaching at the same time, and about 30% straight up coaching. But I'll say it again, I'm a coach first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my clients that are taking advantage of microdosing, I help them with calibration. Figuring out your dosage is probably the main thing, because it's not like taking a pharmaceutical, like let's say Adderall or something. Um, with psilocybin and any psychedelic, everybody's different, and it has nothing to do with weight. It has to do with chemistry.
Interesting.
So we spend at least probably about a month calibrating the dosage, finding out what window the dosage is, and then hopefully at the end of, I normally work with my clients for like a minimum of like 3 months. What they will walk away with is being very comfortable building their relationship with psilocybin, figuring out what their calibration is, so they can do it on their own.
Gotcha. Your
Yeah.
goal is to not be needed anymore because they are so knowledgeable in themselves that they can go on with.
I don't, yeah, I mean, if a client finds it helpful to meet with me on a regular basis I have clients that I've been working with for a year and a half or so, like once a week, once every 2 weeks. But it's because they find it helpful. It's not because they need me.
Right.
They just find it helpful. It's like, it's a sometimes it's a workout sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's fun to explore and explore different perspectives and work on the goals. But a lot of times it's like, all right, they're done. It was a workout. It was a
Yeah,
workout.
for sure.
So yeah. But it's all about my coaching is extremely client centered. It's all about empowerment. I don't give advice unless I'm really asked to, because I do believe that, and this is part of the coactive coaching model, is that the client has the answers and the coach has the questions.
I love that. I love that because they do. The only answers that are going to be relevant in their lives going forward will be coming from inside of them. I completely agree with you on that.
That's where whatever we want to call it, the authenticity, the truth, the compass, and it's just the compass to make different choices and continue to move forward and take different actions. But it's about getting clear. I just create a space and I ask a million questions to get clear on what's important to them, and are those important things, which I refer to as core values, are they being honored, or
Right.
are they being stepped on? And if they're not being honored, there's a very good chance that there's some kind of anxiety or depression or stress happening because we're not honoring the most important things in our lives.
Right. And we wonder why we're
Putting
feeling
it,
anxious. I mean, of
yeah,
course we would be,
right.
you know.
I mean, this isn't I would say in most cases that in most cases, for most people, if the most important things are clear and addressed, and then there are actions taken to honor that, mostly their level of anxiety just goes down a few notches for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So for somebody like me, that's I
Yes.
get that's a microdosing virgin, so to speak, or psychedelics, I've never tried it.
Yes.
And I think that
Yes.
one of the things that would hold me back from trying it is just simply fear of the unknown and not knowing what to expect. Like what will happen if I try that? What would you say to somebody like that was curious, interested in trying it, but was nervous? What can they expect to feel? And what will
Okay.
happen when they try it? Does that make sense?
Okay. Perfect sense. So let me first start off by saying that a microdose is on average 1/10 to 1/20th of a dosage of a macro dose or a tripping dosage where someone is hallucinating. What someone should expect, well, first of all, in the beginning, when I'm teaching them how to calibrate their dosage, we start off at it's such a small dosage that in the beginning, actually almost everyone doesn't even feel anything. And then we incrementally increase. And that's why it takes about a month or so. Um, every other day, we incrementally increase. First of all, no one's when you're microdose, there are no one's hallucinating.
Okay, I think that's what I would
Let
be
me
afraid of, is that I
let me
might
be
go
very
crazy or
clear.
something.
Let me be very clear about that. Oh, you know what's coming to me right now? Okay. Yesterday, I was sitting out in the morning having coffee with my wife, and we have hummingbirds all over here. And so these two hummingbirds came up face, and zzz, and all of a sudden I look at my wife. She's like so excited. So
Excited.
there's
Yeah.
this element of like excitement and focus. Like in that moment when these hummingbirds were right in front of her face, she wasn't thinking about anything. There were hummingbirds in front of her face, and her face lit up. And so maybe not that much of an effect, but it's this sense of well-being and I'm going to say joy,
Yeah.
and because the default mode network is becoming less active, we're not thinking about the things that we think about and ruminate all the time. There's quiet, the brain quiets down, the inner critic quiets down, the saboteur quiets down, and you're left with whatever you're left with. You're left with whatever is there.
Yeah.
And so the reason, and so there's an element of focus, there's an element of well-being,
Yeah.
um, uh, like this uh, element of like sustainable energy.
Interesting.
Um, Yeah, and so just to be very clear, nobody's hallucinating. You know that when you're taking a little bit too much, when maybe you start to feel a little scattered
Okay.
in your brain, or you start to feel a little tired, then we know we're probably outside of the window of calibration of dosage.
Gotcha. So you're
That's
not
probably the
trying to
worst
get
thing
high.
that would
That's
happen.
not the goal, right? You're not trying to get high or have hallucinations. You're just trying to get calm and clear, it sounds like.
Calm and clear, calm and clear. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. And no, you're not getting high. This is not you can if you take a bit more, yeah, and it could be quite enjoyable. It is
Right.
quite enjoyable for
But
most
that's a
people.
different thing
But
than what you're talking about.
that's for, I like to take a little bit more if I love microdosing and exercising because it's just like it really brings me into the moment.
Yeah.
What microdosing also helps with is doing these things that it makes the daily tasks that aren't they're kind of like redundant or not so enjoyable. It just makes it a little bit more enjoyable also. But you're not high. You're not
Gotcha.
high. You can, yeah, and that's you figure out what dosage you whatever serves you best. You figure out your window, and then like for example, this morning I told you I took probably a tenth of what I would normally take as a microdose, and I'm an expert at figuring out now what my dosage is. So I knew, and I also know what's happening in the brain. So I just feel more present
Yeah.
and kind of happy, and just I'm feeling gratitude for being here with you. Um, yeah, that's it's the best I can it's the best I can describe it. But I
Well,
wouldn't
that's helpful
I
because
I
that dispelled some myths that I maybe had in my mind that if I tried this, somehow I would, not be in control of what I was thinking or saying or doing.
I would say it's the opposite.
Yeah, that's what it
I
sounds
would say
like.
I would say it's the opposite of that.
So in your
You're more
coaching,
intentional. Yeah.
yeah, I would think so. In your coaching, people come to you with maybe a problem they're
Mhm.
trying to solve or whatever, they're coming to coaching for. It sounds to me like the microdosing, like you said, is a tool, but how does that help somebody to increase the benefit of coaching? Like why would you not just stick with traditional coaching and then do this as a completely separate thing? How do those two things wed together well?
Well, microdosing, I'm going to use the word tool again. So it's a tool to prime my clients to show up with the quiet, you show up to a coaching session with being more present and a quieter mind, and then it also opens the heart, so it makes us more vulnerable. Um, when the saboteur and the inner critic gets quiet, then we can be a little bit more in touch with what's really happening. So, in a nutshell, I would say my clients show up with a quieter mind and an open heart. What's what's bad about that? I mean,
Yeah,
it makes honestly, it makes my
makes
job
sense.
easier. It makes the coaching session more efficient for both my client and myself.
Interesting.
I try and create a space for my clients to be and to share what they want coaching on, and to share it from an authentic place, an honest place. And the microdosing helps turn down anything that might get in the way. And so it just cuts through to the core. So that's that. I mean, that's why it's so powerful. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we all have that. You've been saying saboteur, inner critic, all of those things that we all have, all those little voices and all those little pesky thoughts and feelings that are so unhelpful and hold us back from so many things. And we develop those, we
Yes.
pick up more as we go along in our lives. And to be able to sort of just set those aside for a minute and get into what's real, because those things are not real. They feel very real, but they are not,
And you mentioned that they're not helpful. They're not helpful today. They were at some point.
right,
At,
right.
at some point in their lives, they were helpful, um, but not anymore. And we don't want to hate the inner critic or the saboteur, because it gives us information. It shines a light on
True.
what might need some attention, and it shines a light on these conditioned thoughts and actions that we've been operating with that worked at some time, but not now.
Right.
Not now. So becoming very clear on that And having a relationship with the inner critic or the saboteur is so important to know when it's showing up. Like there's a there's a moment when I'm like imagining like my inner critic like coming walking up and stepping up and coming behind
Yeah.
me, and just showing up to like protect me, um like an old friend would like come and help you, back in high school or whatever, but you got into trouble with them. So, from their help. So, also what the microdosing does, what the psilocybin does is it shines a light on what might need attention in our lives.
Hmm.
So it's not all about focus, and I mean all of the focus and the energy and the feeling of well-being is there, but if someone signs up for like a larger psychedelic experience, they need to know that it very well might shine a light on something that might need attention. And then that's where the integration comes in. But if somebody doesn't want to deal with, if somebody doesn't is not ready for that, then don't I recommend not entertaining psychedelics. I mean,
Because
even
that's a little frightening.
without microdosing.
Yeah, that's a little
Sorry.
scary in a way to think that things that you've been keeping down for a while would suddenly come up. And, if you're not ready, that could be terrifying, I would think.
It could be, but if you're ready, it's a wonderful tool.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even in coaching, things can come, even forget about psychedelics.
Yeah.
Even with coaching, creating a space and being asked questions, stuff very well could come up also. So most people sign up for coaching and the microdosing because they want to grow. They want to address these things. They want to sort of take a leap off the cliff, knowing that they're in a safe space, though.
Right. Exactly. That's the key, is that you create that for them
Yes.
first.
Yes. Yes.
So important. So one question I have, if this is something that sort of suppresses the amygdala. I know our amygdala is critical to our survival. Without it, we would just be walking in front of traffic. We would, we wouldn't have any sort of
Right.
basic instincts of self-protection. The
Mhm.
microdosing doesn't isn't dangerous that way. So tell me
Not
about
at a microdose level.
that. Okay.
No, no. The amygdala and the default mode network it's stronger than not at a microdose level.
Okay.
At a at a macrodose level. That's then yeah, you're in an altered state. That's why it's so important to, it's highly recommended to have either like a sitter or do it with a therapist or a coach, um, and to be very intentional about your set and setting, your mindset and the setting around you, and be in a controlled environment. Because usually when people have, I would say, negative experiences, they haven't put thought into their set and setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody could very well have a wonderful experience walking around New York City on a very large dosage, but I would not do that.
Right.
I personally would not.
Risky.
But just to be clear regarding your question about microdosing, no, there's nothing, I would say that there's nothing to worry about as far as the important part, the important function of the amygdala and the default mode network. If an emergency happens, it'll override any of the small amount of psilocybin that's in the system.
Okay, so you're safe. It's safe in the microdose realm. You're not so altered that you're not in control of yourself.
No, I mean, what if listen, if someone has a half of a glass of wine or something like that, and an emergency happens, they're not, they're it's a powerful, our amygdala is freaking powerful.
Right.
So So the larger the dosage, the more the amygdala and the default mode network is dampened. So it's a direct correlation between the dosage and the amount of when someone's ego gets dissolved, that's you're talking, it's known as like a heroic dose, very, very large dosage. Yeah, you shouldn't be operating any heavy machinery or doing it.
Right.
You should just be in your set and setting with guidance and a sitter.
Yeah, well, and you made a good point comparing it to alcohol, because there's other things that are pretty mainstream, like alcohol, that are also the same. Like, you shouldn't drink excessively and then be expecting yourself to be in full control. So it's not really that different than things that are already considered pretty normal and accepted.
Right.
Just use it
Yes.
wisely, don't make bad choices.
Yeah, just intention. It's all, I can't express yeah, when it comes to this kind of work and this kind of medicine, intention um, is probably, I know other experts will say this, your intention is just as powerful as the medicine.
Hmm,
I mean, we know how important intention
sure.
is. This medicine is just a tool to accelerate it or enhance
Get
it.
all the other stuff out of the way so that you can actually focus on it.
Yes. Yes.
Love that. Now, I know you mentioned ayahuasca earlier, which is different than the psilocybin, but I've heard, again, we're myth busting here now, but I've heard that things like that can
Mhm.
actually make you feel kind of sick. Is that true of microdosing also? Like physically,
Um,
like stomach sick?
the larger the dosage, the more you might feel some nausea, and it's just because the stomach is our digestive system is working to break it down. But there are things you can do for and on a microdose level. I very actually I don't think I'm just thinking about back maybe like one or two people have experienced ever so slight nausea, and there's something you can do for that, which is you put the mushrooms in you soak the mushrooms in lemon juice,
Okay.
and the lemon juice does the job of the digestive system, but it doesn't in advance. It breaks down whatever causes that nausea in advance. So if anyone has an issue with that, that's one thing you can do that works very effectively. But again, out of I would say only 1 or 2% of people that microdose will feel nauseous.
Okay,
A
that's
larger dosage, yeah, a larger dosage, yeah, that's it's somewhat common, but it's common for the first like hour or so, and then once it levels out, that starts to go away. It's
it's not a
manageable.
big deal. Yeah.
No.
So legality. Talk to me about that. I know that it used to be illegal everywhere, any kind of psychedelic substance. That's not true anymore. Where are things at with that?
So this is an interesting topic because the laws are changing like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right now in the United States, psilocybin, DMT, which is one of the compounds that go into the brew in an ayahuasca brew, along with the ayahuasca vine. So it's the leaf and the vine, and mescaline. Those are decriminalized in Colorado, Oregon, and then scattered cities throughout California, and again, it's changing on a daily basis. So, but mostly, and so, what decriminalized means is that it is legal to possess these the three psychedelics that I mentioned. Um, it's legal to possess it if you're over 21, It's also legal to gift it to someone if you're over 21 and they're over 21, and that's possession. Um, but in Oregon now, it is legal to have a therapeutic psychedelic session with a licensed therapist. So this is where things are going.
Yes.
Um, and then there are like scattered in like places like the Netherlands and certain areas of Canada and Jamaica. It's perfectly legal, and it's legal to actually grow your own. I've spoken to attorneys about this stuff, and the fact of the matter is that the DA and law enforcement throughout the country, they're not putting any energy or money into doing anything into enforcing this. So that's what I mean. That's where we're at right now. And I didn't quite believe that a couple of years ago when someone told me about that, but
Yeah, you're
I'm
like, yeah,
finding
right.
that is to be true. That is to be the truth. So, but still, it is illegal in all of the other states that besides the ones that I mentioned.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because the more and more doctors that I'm hearing talk about this, and the more, it's going to change. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But it's part
Mhm.
of I think, an overall shift in thinking that people are having more toward holistic remedies in general, like more toward all different kinds of herbs, all different kinds of natural remedies that have literally been around since ancient times. These are not new substances that somebody just created. These have been known about, used, practiced for thousands of years. And
Thousands of years.
yeah, we
Yes.
put them away and said, oh, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad during a short period of time. And now they're kind of coming back. And it's just going to take a little time for some spillover to come along, I would think, for people to realize that this doesn't need to be illegal.
It's mind-boggling that alcohol is legal, but and marijuana is now legal, but psilocybin mushrooms, which are so much more safe and gentle and have actual medicinal, listen, it's alcohol and marijuana, since I just mentioned those, yes, they do have a medicinal value to them, but they're much more actually, let's just talk, alcohol is much more toxic than marijuana and mushrooms. So it's just a matter of time. And just this, just it's just you and I talking about this and having other people listen. I'm hoping it's destigmatize.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't say that I'm a proponent
Maybe
because I've never tried it. I don't know much about it really. But the little bit that I know, I feel more inclined to let people make their decisions and to learn about it. And it doesn't mean everyone's going to choose that it's right for them. It's not about that. It's about the fact, like you said, that so many things are legal that not everyone approves of. So, everyone doesn't have to approve to allow other people the right to learn about it and make a choice for themselves. And that's what I'm about in my life. Like I said, I've never tried this stuff, so I can't say it's good or bad or anything else, but I'm following my curiosity, like you said in the beginning, and
Oh, yes.
letting you tell me about it because you do know about it and I don't, and I'm have an open mind to hear what you say. Does that make sense?
100%. Yes. And I just, so many people are benefiting from this medicine. The founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, um, he tried to make psychedelics part of the program
Oh,
because he managed his addiction through psychedelics. So he wanted to be part of the original program. But this was in the time, I think this was in the 60s or the 70s, and just stomped on.
Well, because I do think, in so many people's minds, myself included in the past, not so much in recent times, but there's such this image of this completely, like you said earlier, tripped out person going crazy when you hear the word psychedelics, that it's hard to get that out of people's minds, that that's what psychedelics are, because it can be that if it's misused, but it's not that for all of them, perfectly mainstream people that are starting to recognize its benefits, especially in the microdosing.
I was just going to say that. Yes.
So I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, tell everybody, if they've heard some of this and they're, whatever they think about it, if they're curious to know more, where can they find you online or elsewhere? Where can they find more out about you?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way would be to visit my website, which is leezunisscoaching.com. And I have a tab on there I think I have a tab on there to schedule a free consultation.
Yeah, you do.
But if it's not on there, I do. Okay. Thanks. And I love giving these free consultations. Some of them turn into a consultation slash coaching session. And so if anyone's going to sign up for one, know that I love doing this, and to bring a coaching topic, like bring something that you'd like to address. And then also, I'm mostly present, I would say, on Instagram at Lee Zuniss Coaching is the handle, and also Facebook, Lee Zuniss Coaching, and LinkedIn as well. And I'm pretty sure it's Lee Zuniss Coaching for that. But I would say reach out through my website would be the easiest.
And that's leezunisscoaching.com.
leezunisscoaching.com.
And I can tell you, like, if anybody, not everybody's going to resonate with the microdosing idea, but I would encourage people, even if that's just not for them, to go follow you on all these platforms, because most of your content is it doesn't even have to do with microdosing. It's coaching. You're a coach first and foremost, and you just talk about inspirational topics and overcoming different things, and you're so positive and uplifting. I love your Instagram handle. I get things from it. Every time I see your posts come through, I get some little nugget of inspiration there. So even if somebody is like, microdosing, that's too far out for me, I can't, still go follow Lee, because you will just find so much wisdom and enthusiasm and just zest for life there on his pages. I highly recommend. And that brings me to my final question for you. How does all of this, like take the actual psychedelics out of it, but the idea of opening up your mind and your heart and your soul through whatever means, whether it's psychedelics or exercise or all of those things, how does that help lead somebody toward more joy in their life?
Yeah. Listen, I mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again, because this is what I've really been focusing on with my clients, is figuring out many people don't know, have not put the time, or have not had the opportunity, or have not thought about what's literally important to them. Yeah. So that's the first step. Just what's important, get clear. That's the foundation. And then analyze, are these things are we honoring these things? Are we literally honoring these things? And if we're not, bring awareness to that and take action, because I mean, that's how things happen, through action. And I believe that if we're honoring what's important to us, and we're in alignment with what's important to us, we are going to feel joy. It's the peace and the joy and the contentment of life. It's I believe it's beneath, behind, underneath, whatever. It's underneath all that noise, that rumination, that obsessive thinking that we think about all the time. There's peace under there, and there's joy under there.
I love that because it exists within us all the time.
It's there. It's within us. Absolutely. Yes, I'm getting goosebumps as I say that. Yes, yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. I think that it's been
Such an
so
honor.
educational for me. And, I apologize if any of my questions were too blunt. I'm just genuinely curious. And I know that the things that I'm wondering and thinking, other people are too. And you've been so great to kind of share your wisdom and knowledge with us today.
It is my absolute pleasure and honor. I mean that. I really do.
Thank you so much. Everybody go follow Lee Zuniss Coaching. You won't regret it. And have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for joining me today on the Joyfulicity podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share, and come follow me on all major social media sites at Joyfulicity or on my website, joyfulicity.com. You can follow the link in the description for this episode to all of the places that we can connect. Have a great day, everybody, and remember, dare to dream, plan to play, live to learn.